the future latent in the people. As for the Parisian populace, even when a man grown, it is always the street Arab. To paint the child is to paint the city. And it is for that reason that we have studied this eagle in this arrant sparrow. It is in the faubourgs, above all, we maintain, that the Parisian race appears. There is the pure blood. There is the true physiognomy. There this people toils and suffers, and suffering and toil are the two faces of man. There exist there immense numbers of unknown beings, among whom swarm types of the strangest, from the porter of Râpée to the knacker of Montfaucon. Fex urbis, exclaims Cicero. Mob, adds Burke, indignantly. Rabble, multitude, populace. These are words and quickly uttered. But so be it. What does it matter? What is it to me if they do go barefoot? They do not know how to read. So much the worse. Would you abandon him for that? Would you turn their distress into a malediction? Cannot the light penetrate these masses? Let us return to that cry. Light. And let us obstinately persist therein. Light. Light. Who knows whether these opacities will not become transparent? Are not revolutions transfigurations? Come, philosophers. Teach. Enlighten. Light up. Think aloud. Speak aloud. Hasten joyously to the great sun. Fraternize with the public place. Announce the good news. Spend your alphabets lavishly. Proclaim rights. Sing the Marseillaises. Sow enthusiasms. Tear green boughs from the oaks. Make a whirlwind of the idea. This crowd may be rendered sublime. Let us learn how to make use of that vast conflagration of principles and virtues, which sparkles, bursts forth and quivers at certain hours. These bare feet, these bare arms, these rags, these ignorances, these abjectnesses, these darknesses, may be employed in the conquest of the ideal. Gaze past the people, and you will perceive truth. Let that vile sand which you trample underfoot be cast into the furnace. Let it melt and seethe there. It will become a splendid crystal, and it is thanks to it that Galileo and Newton will discover stars. Chapter 13. Little Gavroche. Little Gavroche. 8 or 9 years after the events narrated in the second part of this story, people noticed on the Boulevard du Temple, and in the regions of the Château d'Eau, a little boy 11 or 12 years of age, who would have realized with tolerable accuracy that ideal of the gaimans sketched out above, if, with the laugh of his age on his lips, he had not had a heart absolutely somber and empty. This child was well muffled up in a pair of man's trousers, but he did not get them from his father, and a woman's chemise, but he did not get it from his mother. Some people or other had clothed him in rags out of charity. Still, he had a father and a mother. But his father did not think of him, and his mother did not love him. He was one of those children most deserving of pity, among all, one of those who have father and mother, and who are orphans nevertheless. This child never felt so well as when he was in the street. The pavements were less hard to him than his mother's heart. His parents had dispatched him into life with a kick. He simply took flight. He was a boisterous, pallid, nimble, wide-awake, jeering lad, with a vivacious but sickly air. He went and came, sang, played at hopscotch, scraped the gutters, stole a little, but, like cats and sparrows, gaily laughed when he was called a rogue, and got angry when called a thief. He had no shelter, no bread, no fire, no love. But he was merry because he was free. When these poor creatures grow to be men, the millstones of the social order meet them and crush them. But so long as they are children, they escape because of their smallness. The tiniest hole saves them. Nevertheless, Abandoned as this child was, it sometimes happened, every 2 or 3 months, that he said, "Come, I'll go and see Mama." Then he quitted the boulevard, the Cirque, the Porte Saint Martin, descended to the quays, crossed the bridges, reached the suburbs, arrived at the Salpêtrière, and came to a halt, where? Precisely at that double number 50 to 52 with which the reader is acquainted, at the Gorbeau hovel. At that epoch, the hovel 50 to 52 generally deserted and eternally decorated with the placard, "Chambers to let," chanced to be, a rare thing, inhabited by numerous individuals who, however, as is always the case in Paris, had no connection with each other. All belonged to that indigent class which begins to separate from the lowest of petty bourgeoisie in straitened circumstances, and which extends from misery to misery into the lowest depths of society down to those two beings in whom all the material things of civilization end: the sewerman who sweeps up the mud, and the rag-picker who collects scraps. The principal lodger of Jean Valjean's day was dead and had been replaced by another exactly like her. I know not what philosopher has said, "Old women are never lacking." This new old woman was named Madame Bergen, and had nothing remarkable about her life except a dynasty of 3 paroquets, who had reigned in succession over her soul. The most miserable of those who inhabited the hovel were a family of 4 persons, consisting of father, mother, and 2 daughters, already well grown, all 4 of whom were lodged in the same attic, one of the cells which we have already mentioned. At first sight, this family presented no very special feature except its extreme destitution. The father, when he hired the chamber, had stated that his name was Jondrette. Some time after his moving in, which had borne a singular resemblance to the entrance of nothing at all. To borrow the memorable expression of the principal tenant, this Jondrette had said to the woman, who, like her predecessor, was at the same time portress and stair-sweeper, "Mother so and so, if anyone should chance to come and inquire for a Pole or an Italian, or even a Spaniard, perchance, it is I." This family was that of the merry barefoot boy. He arrived there and found distress, and, what is still sadder, no smile. A cold hearth and cold hearts. When he entered, he was asked, "Whence come you?" He replied, "From the street." When he went away, they asked him, "Whither are you going?" He replied, "Into the streets." His mother said to him, "What did you come here for?" This child lived, in this absence of affection, like the pale plants which spring up in cellars. It did not cause him suffering, and he blamed no one. He did not know exactly how a father and mother should be. Nevertheless, his mother loved his sisters. We have forgotten to mention that on the Boulevard du Temple this child was called Little Gavroche. Why was he called Little Gavroche? Probably because his father's name was Jondrette. It seems to be the instinct of certain wretched families to break the thread. The chamber which the Jondrettes inhabited in the Gorbeau hovel was the last at the end of the corridor. The cell next to it was occupied by a very poor young man who was called M. Marius. Let us explain who this M. Marius was.